Welcome to Whole CEO with Lisa G. I'm the best-selling author of The Boss Weight Loss. I'm bringing you the top tips to be unstoppable. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to actually pull up a chair with today's top experts in mindset, weight loss, business, and more. Learn our top tips so that you can have more energy, be fit and resilient, feel unstoppable, unshakable, and unbreakable. He built several companies, learning from rapid growth, failure, and eventually burnout, and success too. After selling two national businesses, Chris's focus has been on delivering a fresh sense of clarity and experience to business owners, helping them bring profitability and balance to their vision. Chris Wise, welcome to Whole CEO with Lisa G.
Thanks, Lisa. It's great to be here.
So happy to have you. I love what you're all about, and even our conversation before this about bull sharks. So let's just jump right in with how can we find opportunities for growth in crises?
Yeah. Well, there's two different types of opportunities we can look at. I think what most people look at in terms of opportunity is financial opportunity or external opportunities. And I think that's pretty well known out there. But the type of opportunity that I would like to focus on and that I actually bring to the CEOs and executives that I work with is the internal growth opportunities that occur when the stuff in our outside world isn't working the way we want it to, or when crisis is occurring. That actually is the greatest opportunity for internal growth.
I agree.
But there's two key things that you got to do to recognize it.
Right.
The first is you have to have that mindset and that understanding to even know to look for it. And the second thing is in the belief system. I'm going to give you two belief systems that are very powerful. And the second is the right tool to actually have transformation and actually create the opportunity. So starting with the first one, the belief system. The belief is, the belief that I embrace, the belief that I would invite you to embrace is that everything is here to serve you.
Right.
Everything is here to serve you.
Even 2020, right?
2020, yeah. There's a lot of opportunity that I think we've all had in the last couple years, and whether or not we've really fully taken advantage of the hard stuff that we've gone through has been based on how deeply you've embraced these beliefs. So everything is here to serve you. And the other one is everything is happening for your highest good. Now, these are frameworks that you like, okay, I like it, it makes sense, I'm going to take it on. Then it's a lens in which how you see the world.
Yes.
And so the second piece is, all right, okay, I like it, I can dig that. Now, what do you actually do to really make it so you have that internal transformation that's possible? All right, so let's take a particular situation. So I want everybody to think, as we're talking through here, pick a situation that's happened in this year where something has been a crisis or not gone the way that you wanted to. And I want you to, if you can, think through what's the core emotion that came up during that time. Was it fear? Was it sadness? Was it loneliness? Usually I think those are kind of loss. Those are kind of four really core emotions that come up in crisis. So, but think of this own situation. I'm actually we're going to do this right now, if that's okay, Lisa.
Oh, I love that you're giving actionable tips. And I especially love how you started with fear, because I know for me, a lot of that came up during the last couple of years. And that's why I launched this podcast, to help everyone become unstoppable.
Perfect. All right. So we'll pick fear. And in fact, can you share a little bit of context, and maybe I can actually just create this custom for you?
I love it, Chris. Yeah. I mean, for me personally, my whole business changed. I live actually also really close to where the BLM riot was, and first Kobe died. So it felt to me like a big pile on top of, and then stuff kept happening. Somebody, an old virtual assistant of mine, took my YouTube channel. My neighbor
wrecked my car. And it was just like
Wow.
one of those big, like a lot of
Yeah.
stuff came up for me. There was a lot of hacking and theft over this wild, wild west out there that we know as the whole new way of doing things. So it wasn't just one thing, it was triggering my old stuff.
Yep.
And the fear of
Yep.
anger and fear and just, and I've turned it around. So I want to help others do that too.
Beautiful. So I'm going to get, if there's any stuff in there that hasn't been fully loved or embraced, then this will be an opportunity. And you can, this will be also, if you have, it'll just be like, oh yeah, I'm good. But what we're going to do here, and then so everybody else, like, so we're going to focus on, Lisa, for you, we're going to focus on fear. And for everyone else, you'll have your own emotion. If it's fear, that's great. And so Lisa, have you ever done any inner child work or inner
Yeah,
self work?
that's how I healed from this most recent thing, was just really being on a training a couple weeks ago and realizing that everything that's happened to me, my reaction to it was from my little Lisa.
Okay, beautiful. So you already got this. So for everyone else, if this is where we're going to be, the part of ourselves that we're going to be connecting with is our inner child. Another psychological model calls it the inner self. And from a spiritual perspective, it might also be known as the heart space. So if you're familiar with one of those terms, that'll be helpful. That's, but we're going to be bringing our attention to that part of ourself. And let's go ahead, Lisa, if you want to put your hand on your heart, and everyone else, as you're listening to this, go ahead and put your hand on your heart and close your eyes. And Lisa, just feel into, and everyone else, just feel into connecting into your, with your inner child,
Right.
to your heart space.
Yes.
And just repeat after me. To the one who's feeling fear, I love you.
To the one who's feeling fear, I love you.
To the one who's feeling fear, I love you.
To the one who's feeling fear, I love you. Ah, love this.
To the one who's feeling loss, I love you.
To the one who's feeling loss, I love you.
To the one who's feeling fear, I accept you.
To the one who's feeling fear, I accept you.
So this is the base. Now this is, we're doing this very quick and short so you get a taste. And if somebody else is listening to this and you have a different emotion, you can swap that out, like to the one who's feeling sadness or loneliness or boredom or jealousy, whatever the emotion is. What we're doing is to that part of our, we're calling out the part of ourselves that needs more love, because we all deserve more love, not less. And we're calling out that part and we're actively loving it. This isn't an affirmation. This is like a self to self relationship, like adult self to inner child self. We're loving that part of ourselves. And as we love that, this is what's happening. As we love that part of ourselves, we're actually in putting more love into our bodies. Thus, we're enabling greater safety to be felt so that we actually feel safe enough to feel the emotion that's there. And as we feel safe enough to feel the emotion that's there, that emotion can actually now move through us. Because without this, it just gets stuck and we carry it, or we avoid it, or we try to escape it, and we never feel okay feeling it. But this is a practice and a process so that, and so that's the opportunity. So kind of tying this back to the opportunity in crisis. Crisis is bringing up emotions, and the opportunity is for us to love and embrace the unloved aspects of ourselves, and thus we transform our relationship with the crisis. And when we're able to see things without being the emotional weight, or being blinded, or having to kind of push down these emotions that we're too afraid to feel, now we're feeling them, we're able to be fully present with them, and now we can make more conscious decisions and actually see external opportunities that we may not have actually seen before.
Well, there's just so much to unpack there. I mean, I really, for one, love the distinction that you made between affirmations and inner child work, because affirmations alone don't work unless you clear up the inner stuff, the trauma, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's a great point, because I actually, for so long, I did all this personal development work without doing the inner work. And I was just like, why do I have to keep saying this over? Like I'm convincing myself, right? And what I realized as I began to then do this inner work, I was just trying to pave over a swamp.
Me too. I've done that. It's like repeating the same behavior over and over again with affirmations doesn't work unless you clear up your childhood traumas, or at least feel them so you can heal them, whether you're feeling
Yep.
unlovable, unworthy, not good
Yep.
enough,
Yep.
in fear, which triggers all of that stuff.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I love that you went there and you gave us some actual tools. And besides that, is there anything else about our unlovable past that affects our business decisions today?
Oh yeah, I'm so glad you went there, because as I'm working with CEOs and executives, this is like human stuff that we're dealing with here.
Right.
We're human beings. And if you want to grow a profitable and impactful business that continues to scale and grow effectively, this is one of the tools that I bring as part of the scaling process. This is real. And I'll give a great example. So there's a roofing and siding company that I'm helping grow right now.
Right.
And he's had some challenges building a team and delegating. And so and like when people weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing, he'd get really triggered and angry, like right away, and then would communicate in an unhealthy way that would, destabilize the relationship. And so we went in and we were doing this work, and we realized, he realized that when he was a teenager, he was trying to learn. He was working for his dad's roofing and siding company, and he didn't know what to do, and he was asking for help. And the guys that were working with him gave him a hard time and picked on him and actually made fun of him for not knowing what to do, and he felt horrible. And so our ego is here to serve us, and his ego said, hey, this feels horrible, and I'm gonna become really good, and I'm gonna show them.
Right.
And so and then he actually ended up becoming their boss, and he said, I'm gonna figure it out, I'm gonna do it right, I gotta do it, it's all on me. But that response was from a deep place of pain. Like, you don't know this when it's happening, when it's right.
Because you just go to micromanage when you're in fear like that, because you want to control things, right?
Yep. And so this is a side comment, but our ego is actually serving us, right? So we don't ever want to make the ego wrong. And if we see an unhealthy or overreactive ego, what we need to, either in ourselves or in another person, we need to realize that there's deep unhealed wounds there that are causing that to happen. And when we actually realize that, like, one for ourselves, hey, we don't want to make our egos wrong, it's just trying to help us, and like, boom, there's a pain there to solve, then we actually can love all of ourselves. We love our ego, we love the wounded inner child, right? So back to the story, we realized that there was a deep feeling of inferiority and not feeling good enough, and inadequacy.
Right.
That was the core reason that then now he was reacting in business. And so we guided him to loving those aspects of self. And this isn't an overnight process. But as he began to do that, and he's still doing the work now, he's now creating greater space where he feels like, I can actually delegate now. I actually don't have to do it myself. I actually am feeling when somebody is not doing what they're supposed to, I actually now feel greater space for kindness and compassion in helping them, because now he's these core wounds that were there, his ego is actually able to calm down and not be so inflamed, and is actually now able to be more conscious and present in his business. And that translates into him helping build a team that can scale beyond himself, which ends up creating greater revenue and more profit.
I love that, because it's like, unless you want to be a modern leader and build up others underneath you, you can't really scale. So that's such a wonderful story and example. I love how you give real world examples instead of just trying to teach us stuff. Teach us the applicable things. I know that I mentioned to you off camera about how I really wanted to launch this podcast a year ago during the pandemic to help people be unstoppable, unbreakable, unshakable, so that we can all bounce back, because we've all been through so much trauma that's triggered all of our own childhood wounds. So how can we prevent burnout in business today?
Well, I'd say the first place is start from a place of self-love.
Right.
My recommendation is, and this is what I have done for my own life, and for once I've have been in the lives of the people that I'm consulting with for a while, I'm like, look, I recommend prioritizing self-love above all else. Start from you. Put your own mask on first. Then that just opens up and translates how you begin to operate differently in all areas of life.
Yes.
And if you're deeply loving yourself, well, then you're going to take greater time for self-care. And when you're taking greater time for self-care, that actually will prevent burnout, because it's when, and this was for me in my own life, and I feel like this is true for a lot of people that are just, I was an A-type, running multiple companies, sold 2 of my own businesses, like super driven all the time, pushing myself hard, having unkind conversations with my inner self. That wasn't good enough. You have to go faster. You didn't do it. You didn't hit your goal. Like that's not a, it doesn't have to be that way. But here's what most people don't realize who are in that pattern. You can actually treat yourself in a kind and loving way and actually have greater performance. Like, here's another way to think about this. If there's a flower that's growing, like, is yelling at it and like stomping on it gonna help it grow? No. It's like watering it and nurturing it and getting it sun and actually talking to it. There's talking, right? But see, we're the same way. We are organic, biological. We need love to survive. And yelling at yourself isn't going to help you be more successful. You're yelling at yourself because there's unloved stuff. Like, here's the reality. There's unloved stuff underneath the surface that's causing and driving you to succeed. And many, at least for me, I'll speak for me, and I would say this most likely if someone is overly driven, your source of love and validation and approval is rooted externally. And so you have to drive and push and be on this hamster wheel of achievement over and over and never gets off. And then you get burned out, because the only way that you actually ever feel fully, loved, validated, approved, accepted is when you're succeeding and winning and having the world tell you and you seeing that it's working. But what's happening underneath, and this was for me, and this is what I would assume for most people that are in that mode, is that there's deep, unloved aspects of self that need love, because all that your inner child really wants is to be loved and acknowledged and have your attention. And when you are able to switch this world to where your love and validation and approval and acceptance is sourced externally, and you become the source of your own love, acceptance, and validation, you can have it all. You can have it where you're treating yourself in a kind and loving way, where you're taking care of yourself, where you begin to operate in a sustainable way, where burnout is no longer even an issue. You will actually perform better. People around you will enjoy you more. You'll create higher quality relationships. You'll begin to attract, and those things will you will create greater momentum by treating yourself in a more kind and loving way.
I've experienced this firsthand myself too. After all the trauma that I've been through, I realized that I treat myself in unloving ways by being self-critical and perfectionistic. And I realized that I was turning that critical eye on others as well too. So I put a note in my phone after interviewing another one of my podcast guests, Stephen Deutsch, recently, about self-love, like 3 times a day to love myself and to remove some of the unloving behaviors, because I realized you never want to be in relationship with someone else when you're so critical on yourself, because eventually you try to fix them, and nobody, especially you men type, really want to be fixed, do you?
No, I don't think anybody wants to be fixed, but I think the male ego especially might be especially sensitive, coming from a romantic partner telling them what's wrong with them. That's definitely not the right direction for a man to feel powerful and like, right?
It repels, rather than if you're trying to criticize to get a certain behavior. In my personal experience, I realized they push back and it does the opposite.
Yeah. It takes a anyway, yes, that's so but it's both ways. Nobody wants to feel changed.
No one wants to feel changed. I mean, I don't want people to be like, I love them, they're perfect, now change, because I saw a play called that once a long time ago in New York. I love you, you're perfect, now change. Because once I love myself, I can accept myself and I can accept others too. So I love what you're up to in the world, Chris Wise, and you are truly a wise person. And anything you want to talk about how you got to be so wise and where people can find you, and that maybe bull shark story, because I was like, this man is unstoppable on camera when he told me, oh yeah, I was diving with this bull shark.
Well, yeah, so I'm a location independent entrepreneur and I scale businesses all across the US. And I love just knowing the world. And so I like to spend 1 to 3 months in different countries. And I'm here in Playa del Carmen right now. And last weekend I did a bull shark feeding. So basically you go underwater with a group of people and there's one person that's feeding the sharks and you just watch. And it was the most incredible thing because there's these station wagon sized sharks that are like swimming. They were swimming towards me.
Oh
It
my
was just, it
gosh.
just swam over my head, and I have never been on my regulator harder than, and, it's my first time doing it, so I was a little nervous, and but it was an absolutely incredible experience.
Well, I just wanted to end on that note because what a wonderful example of you doing the work yourself, that you're teaching others and facing your own fears down. Because I don't know about you, but I am scared of sharks, not a shark fan. After many years ago seeing Jaws, and I'm like, yeah, no, I don't like those guys. But at any rate, where can people find you? And do you have anything you want to leave our audience with?
Yes, I work with people who want to make profit and impact, who want both. I want people to have everything. You want to feel amazing in the process of growing a business. You want you want profit and you want to make a big difference. And so it can be really hard to balance impact and profit. And actually, if you do it right, if you get the right mixture, they actually can help synergize both. And so I created an impact and profit index with 10 questions. It'll take you about 3 minutes to go through, and the questions alone will just like, oh, that's such an interesting question. I never thought about that relationship. So when you go through it, it'll give you a score. It'll give you an assessment of how you answered the questions. But what I'm also doing is giving a personalized feedback. So once I receive your assessment, I'll actually take a look at it, and then I'll do a little recording and I'll send it back to you with some of my thoughts on your answers and some tips and tricks. So I'm going to really give some personalized support here for people that are interested in optimizing both impact and profit. And to get that gift, if you go to wiseprofits.net/impact.
Love it.
wiseprofits.net/impact, and to take the impact and profit index.
I'll be doing that. Thanks. I hope you guys are
Cool.
taking some great notes. Thank you, Chris, for being an awesome guest.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa.
Thanks for coming to Whole CEO with Lisa G. After over 20 years helping people lose weight and get fit, I'm so excited to announce that I found the missing link with my coaching. Message me if you want to learn how to look better, feel better, and go faster with a master. Lisa G at lisagfit.com.